The night was silent, broken only by the creak of an old wooden chest being dragged across the floor. Inside her late brother's house, Aunt Abbena stuffed gold trinkets, clothes, and even cooking pots into her sack. Her eyes gleamed like fireflies in the dark. But what made her greed most bitter was not the property she stole. It was the little girl she left behind, her own niece, Amma, sitting barefoot by the door, watching helplessly as everything her parents had left was snatched away. Abbena spat on the ground and hissed, "You're nothing without me, child. Everything here is mine now. Even the spirits know it." Little Amma's eyes welled with tears. The ancestors were watching, and soon they would answer in a way Abbena could never imagine. Before we go deeper into this powerful tale, tell me, where are you watching this from? Drop it in the comments and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this story. Before the night of loss, Amma's world had been warm and filled with laughter. She was only 10, but her parents had taught her the rhythms of life in the village. Planting maize with her father, grinding millet with her mother, and listening to folk tales by the fire when the stars painted the Ghanaian sky. But tragedy struck suddenly. A fever swept through the village, and within days, Amma's parents were gone. The elders held a burial, speaking of their kindness and the legacy they left behind. Many whispered that Amma, though young, carried her father's courage and her mother's gentle heart. At first, villagers thought Aunt Abbena would care for her niece with love. After all, family was sacred, and it was tradition for the closest relative to take the child in. But behind Abbena's sympathetic smile hid envy. She had always believed her brother's wealth should have been hers, and now, with him gone, her chance had come. Amma noticed the change almost immediately. The woman who had hugged her tightly at the funeral now barked orders and eyed every possession in the house like a vulture circling prey. The girl's tears had barely dried when Abbena began whispering to neighbors that everything belonged to her. The ancestors watched quietly as Amma's childhood slipped away, one greedy act at a time. It began with small things. Aunt Abbena took Amma's mother's golden earrings, saying, "You are too young for such things. I will keep them safe." Days later, she claimed Amma's father's farmland, arguing before the elders that as the only adult relative, it rightfully belonged to her. Amma watched in silence as her aunt's hands reached deeper. The goats, the household tools, even the cooking pots. Soon, Amma was left with nothing but her clothes and a wooden stool her father had carved for her. The villagers whispered among themselves. Some pitied Amma, but none dared confront Abbena. She was known for her sharp tongue and cunning ways. "That girl will suffer under her aunt," one woman murmured, "but the ancestors do not sleep." Amma's suffering grew each day. She was no longer treated like a child of the family, but like a servant. She fetched water from the river before sunrise, pounded fufu until her small arms ached, and went to bed hungry while Abena's children ate their fill. Yet even in her sorrow, Amma remembered her parents' words. "When the world turns against you, look to the ancestors. They never abandon their children." And so each night she whispered prayers into the wind, her small voice carrying into the unseen world. What Amma didn't know was that the ancestors had already begun to stir. One moonlit night, after a long day of toil, Amma sat outside on her small stool, gazing at the stars. The harmattan wind blew gently, carrying with it the smell of burning firewood and distant drums from another village. Her stomach rumbled from hunger, but her eyes were fixed on the sky. Suddenly, she felt a strange warmth on her shoulder, like a gentle hand resting there. Amma turned quickly, but no one was behind her. Only the swaying palm trees stood tall, whispering in the breeze. That night, she dreamed of her mother, dressed in white, standing by a river. Her mother spoke softly, "Amma, my child, do not lose heart. The ancestors see your tears. When the time is right, they will raise you above those who mock you." When Amma awoke, the dream still lingered in her mind. She went to the river that morning, and as she fetched water, she noticed something unusual, a golden feather floating on the surface, glowing in the sunlight. She picked it up and tucked it secretly into her wrapper. That same day, the village priest, an old man named Nana Kwame, came to their compound to perform blessings for the new yam harvest. His eyes fell on Amma, and he paused. "Child," he said in a deep voice, "you carry the mark of protection. Do not let anyone steal it from you." Abbena laughed mockingly, brushing it off. But Amma felt her heart steady. For the first time she believed, her cries had been heard. What Amma didn't know was that the golden feather was only the beginning. Not long after Amma found the golden feather, small but strange events began to shake Abena's household. One morning, Abbena woke up to discover her prized calabash of palm oil, kept high on the wooden shelf, had mysteriously spilled all over the floor. No one could explain how it happened. The following week, the yam barn that Abbena had stolen from Amma's parents collapsed in the middle of the night, leaving yams scattered and rotting. Villagers whispered that such a thing could only mean one thing: the ancestors were angry. Abbena grew restless. She scolded Amma more harshly, as if punishing the girl would silence her own fear. "You bring bad luck into my house," she spat one evening, as Amma returned from the river with a pot of water balanced gracefully on her head. But Amma said nothing. She only looked at her aunt with calm eyes, remembering her mother's words in the dream. Deep within, she felt that she was not alone anymore. One night, Abbena herself had a terrifying dream. She saw shadows of her late brother and his wife, Amma's parents, standing at the foot of her bed. They did not speak, but their eyes were filled with sorrow and fire. When she tried to scream, no sound came out. She awoke drenched in sweat, her heart pounding like a drum. Still, her greed would not let her change. Instead, Abbena became more determined to keep everything she had taken. She began plotting how to rid herself of Amma completely. What Abbena didn't know was that every plan she made would only tighten the ancestors' net around her. Abbena sat under the moonlight, chewing on roasted maize, her face tense. Her greed gnawed at her like a rat in the night. She muttered to herself, "If Amma is gone, no one will ever question what I took. No spirits, no villagers, no one." The next morning, she called Amma. "From today, you will fetch firewood from the thick forest near the old baobab tree. Others fear it, but you must go. Do not return without a heavy bundle." The villagers gasped when they heard. That forest was whispered to be cursed. Hunters avoided it, elders warned against going near. But Amma, obedient as always, bowed her head and went. Deep in the forest, strange sounds filled the air. The rustle of leaves seemed like whispers. The wind carried voices that spoke in riddles. Amma clutched her bundle of firewood tightly, her heart beating fast. Suddenly, a figure appeared. A tall old man with a staff carved from ebony wood. His hair was white like cotton, his robe shimmering like moonlight. "My child," he said in a deep voice, "why do you walk this forest alone?" Amma, trembling, answered honestly, "My aunt sent me here. She says I must bring wood, though others fear this place." The old man smiled faintly. "Your aunt's greed has blinded her. But fear not, for you are not alone. The blood of your parents runs strong, and the ancestors watch you." He reached into the folds of his robe and pulled out a small clay pot, glowing faintly. "Take this," he said, placing it in Amma's hands. "When your trials grow heavy, open it. The truth will reveal itself, and justice will follow." Before Amma could thank him, the man vanished into thin air, like smoke dissolving into the forest mist. Amma returned home with the bundle of wood, clutching the clay pot close to her chest. She did not yet know that the pot was the very key to exposing her aunt's wickedness, and that soon the ancestors' hand would move openly. That night, as Abbena slept, the ancestors stirred. The wind howled through the compound, rattling the doors and windows. Amma, lying quietly on her mat, clutched the clay pot the old man had given her. Suddenly, the pot grew warm in her hands. A soft humming sound rose from within it, almost like a drumbeat carried from another realm. Amma sat up, frightened but curious. Slowly, she lifted the lid. A burst of light spilled into the room, golden and pure, filling every corner. Out of the glow appeared images, her mother and father, smiling, their voices gentle like the evening breeze. "My child," her mother's spirit whispered, "do not fear. The truth is in your hands. What your aunt has stolen will be returned, for the ancestors do not sleep." Amma's eyes filled with tears. "But how, Mama? She is powerful, and I am only a girl." Her father's spirit replied firmly, "It is not strength of hand that defeats wickedness, but strength of truth. Tomorrow, when the villagers gather, carry this pot. The ancestors will do the rest." The vision faded, and the pot returned to its normal clay form, cool and ordinary in her hands. But Amma's heart now burned with courage. At dawn, the drumbeat of the village gong summoned everyone to the square. There was to be a land dispute hearing, and Abbena had pushed herself into the middle of it, claiming rights she did not own. Amma walked quietly into the gathering, the clay pot in her hands. The villagers looked at her with pity. Poor girl, carrying firewood every day, living under a cruel aunt. No one yet knew what she carried was about to turn their world upside down. Abbena stood proudly, her wrapper bright, her voice loud. "This land belongs to me," she declared, pointing at a fertile stretch near the river. "I am the rightful owner, for I am the elder." The elders listened, nodding, ready to consider her claim. But before anyone could answer, Amma stepped forward. The villagers murmured in surprise. Amma raised the clay pot high. "Please, elders, before judgment is made, I must show you something." She opened the pot once more. A mighty wind swept through the square. The baobab trees bent, the earth seemed to tremble, and a great voice echoed, deep and resonant. "Abbena, your greed has brought shame upon you. The land you claim was never yours. It was stolen from the child you swore to protect." Gasps filled the air. Abbena froze, her eyes wide, her knees shaking. The truth was no longer hidden. The ancestors had spoken. The crowd erupted in shock, some villagers covering their mouths, others whispering loudly as the air still hummed with the voice of the ancestors. The clay pot in Amma's hands glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Abbena staggered back, her confident posture broken. "No, no, this is lies. That pot is nothing but clay. Do not listen to this foolish child," she screamed, pointing at Amma. But the elders frowned. Elder Kojo, the oldest among them, stepped forward, his walking stick pressing firmly into the ground. "Abbena," he said gravely, "we all know the ancestors do not lie. If Amma holds their voice, then the truth must be heard. You will answer for what has been spoken." Sweat ran down Abbena's forehead. Her hands trembled as she tried to regain control. "No, I cared for her when no one else would. I gave her food, a roof." A villager interrupted, shouting, "Food? Roof? We all saw how you treated her. She carried water from dawn till dusk while you sat in comfort. Do not insult us with falsehoods." The murmurs grew louder, the villagers emboldened now that the truth was in the open. Then the pot flared once again. Out of its golden light emerged a vision, clearer than before. The villagers gasped as they saw Abbena herself, years ago, taking Amma's late parents' property, locking away their savings, and swearing before the shrine that she would care for the child. Her oath echoed through the air. "I will guard this child's inheritance as if it were my own." The vision faded, but the shame remained. Abbena's knees gave way, and she fell to the ground, trembling. The proud, greedy aunt who had strutted with power was now weeping before the whole village. Amma, small but unshaken, stood taller than she ever had. The elders turned to her, their voices softened. "Child, what do you wish to be done? For the ancestors have made you their messenger today." Amma looked at her aunt, broken and humiliated. She could feel the villagers waiting, some hoping she would demand punishment, others curious if she would show mercy. Her hands tightened around the pot. Her heart pounded. The girl who had once been powerless now held the fate of her oppressor. The crowd erupted in shock, some villagers covering their mouths, others whispering loudly as the air still hummed with the voice of the ancestors. The clay pot in Amma's hands glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Abbena staggered back, her confident posture broken. "No, no, this is lies. That pot is nothing but clay. Do not listen to this foolish child," she screamed, pointing at Amma.
But the elders frowned. Elder Kojo, the oldest among them, stepped forward, his walking stick pressing firmly into the ground. "Abbena," he said gravely, "we all know the ancestors do not lie. If Amma holds their voice, then the truth must be heard. You will answer for what has been spoken." Sweat ran down Abbena's forehead. Her hands trembled as she tried to regain control. "No. I cared for her when no one else would. I gave her food, a roof." A villager interrupted, shouting, "Food? Roof? We all saw how you treated her. She carried water from dawn till dusk while you sat in comfort. Do not insult us with falsehoods." The murmurs grew louder, the villagers emboldened now that the truth was in the open. Then, the pot flared once again. Out of its golden light emerged a vision, clearer than before. The villagers gasped as they saw Abbena herself, years ago, taking Alma's late parents' property, locking away their savings, and swearing before the shrine that she would care for the child. Her oath echoed through the air, "I will guard this child's inheritance as if it were my own." The vision faded, but the shame remained. Abina's knees gave way, and she fell to the ground, trembling. The proud, greedy aunt who had started with power was now weeping before the whole village. Alma, small but unshaken, stood taller than she ever had. The elders turned to her, their voices softened. "Child, what do you wish to be done? For the ancestors have made you their messenger today." Alma looked at her aunt, broken and humiliated. She could feel the villagers waiting, some hoping she would demand punishment, others curious if she would show mercy. Her hands tightened around the pot. Her heart pounded. The girl who had once been powerless now held the fate of her oppressor. Weeks turned into months, and the village never forgot the night of the ancestral judgment. Alma thrived under the care of the elders, attending school during the day and learning the stories of her ancestors by the fire at night. She grew stronger, her spirit shining brighter than ever before. Her Aunt Abbena, once feared for her sharp tongue and greedy heart, was now humbled. The villagers made her work the fields for the community. Day after day, she bent her back under the hot sun, planting and harvesting food not for herself, but for the orphans, widows, and elders of the village. At first, she did it grudgingly. But slowly, something began to shift inside her. As she watched Alma laugh again, as she saw the villagers trust her hands with their food, as she felt the weight of her greed melt away with every act of service, her heart softened. One evening, Abbena knelt before Alma and said, "Child, I wronged you in ways I cannot count. But because of you, and the ancestors who spoke through you, I have been given another chance. Forgive me, Alma." Alma placed her hand gently on her aunt's shoulder. "I already did, Auntie. The ancestors wanted me to rise, not to hate. Let us walk a new path." Tears welled in Abina's eyes. For the first time in many years, she truly felt human again. That very night, as the drums echoed across the village, Elder Kojo raised his staff and declared, "Let it be known, Alma is no longer the orphan cast aside. She is the child blessed by the ancestors. Her name will be remembered as the one who turned pain into strength, and greed into redemption." The crowd erupted with joy. Women ululated, men beat the drums, and children danced around Alma as though celebrating a queen. And far above, in the unseen world, the spirits of Alma's parents smiled down. Their daughter had not only survived, she had risen. The ancestors had truly spoken,